Now, the families involved in the infected blood inquiry have once again shown their anger towards Ken Clarke by tabling a question where they called him arrogant, pompous and contemptuous of people who have suffered so much. Lord Clarke was Conservative Health Minister and Health Secretary in the 1980s, when thousands of people were infected with hepatitis and HIV/AIDS after receiving blood product treatments for haemophilia. Amelia Jenne has this report.
These are just some of the faces of its victims, the contaminated blood scandal that killed 3,000 and destroyed the lives of countless more.
Good morning, son. Merry Christmas to you.
Lee, its youngest victim, just 4 when he contracted HIV after being given a blood treatment for his haemophilia. This was his last Christmas.
I can't watch it. I can't look at photos of Lee.
He died aged 10.
He was a cheeky little thing, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But I mean, towards the end, you wouldn't have known who he was. It was very hard for him because he couldn't do anything. He couldn't go out with friends. He couldn't breathe. He was on oxygen. And how do you explain to a 10-year-old why he can't do, what the other children are doing? We obviously knew eventually, because he got so poorly, that he wasn't going to make it. And I think he realised himself.
Did he ever say anything? Or?
He used to say he was frightened.
Yeah.
Quite a lot. AIDS is not a quick death. It's a really long, slow, painful death.
Today, a moment they had travelled 100 miles for. Kenneth Clarke, Health Minister when they were first told Lee had HIV in 1985, and Health Secretary 3 years later. This week he's been questioned over his role in the scandal and whether its victims should be compensated.
You can't just pay out compensation in all those cases where there's no fault on the part of the doctors, there's no part on the fault of the health authority, and there's no fault on the part of the department. And that is the theme we're still maintaining. That runs. That's still the approach today, and I think any other approach would be quite impossible. You'd destroy the health service.
In November 1983, the government said there was no conclusive proof that HIV could be transmitted through blood products. Officials, however, were aware of deaths linked to the treatment by then. Lord Clarke said ministers acted on scientific advice at the time and repeatedly told the inquiry this wasn't his area.
I was not directly responsible for any of this. I only play such a prominent part in evidence because I'm nowadays have the misfortune to be slightly better known than any of the others, and I'm the nearest to a B-list celebrity you've got.
There was so much interest in what Lord Clarke had to say today that there was actually a waiting list to get into the inquiry. A lot of the victims and family members who were there told me they felt disappointed by the evidence he gave. And of course, everything he was being asked about happened many decades ago. But they told me they felt he didn't engage with the process, that he was contemptuous and arrogant.
So much so that one of their lawyers made an unusual last-minute intervention, asking if families could question him on his conduct.
I have been faced with an application, the basis for which I shall simply say I well understand.
It was, however, refused.
Do you feel like you've got the answers to questions that you had?
No, definitely not.
Nowhere near.
We need to be able to move on with our lives and have the truth.
The inquiry has now broken up for summer and will report next year at the earliest.
Amelia Jenne reporting.